found that this should be something of interest. Ramai Swami, Bhakti Marg Swami, Bhakti Vigana Swami, Virbahu Prabhu, Latu Krishna Prabhu, myself. Based on that feedback, we came up with this topic and we reached out and asked His Maharaj and His Holiness Naranjan to present to us. Oh, I didn't mention you, Maharaj? That's because I was going to give a special format introduction. Sorry, I don't know why I didn't. You're our chairperson. Forgive me. So Prahlad Maharaj has been the chair of the Guru Services Committee for a long time, and his leadership is really appreciated. So that's a little bit of an introduction. So what we're going to have schedule-wise, we're just going to take a couple minutes to welcome everybody. Bhakti Marg Swami is going to lead us in a little kirtan in a minute. Then we'll introduce the speakers. Radhanath Maharaj is going to speak for about 20 minutes. Niranjan Maharaj and Achyuta Priya Prabhu are both shared, going to present for another 20 minutes. Then we're going to have about 25 minutes for just open discussion, questions and answers. Then we'll have about a 10-minute break, very punctual, not around 10-minute break. We will have a 10-minute break. And then when we come back, we'll have breakout groups. We'll be in smaller groups, 5, 6 devotees, and allow everybody to participate a little bit more in this discussion about helping disciples to face challenges. And the whole idea behind the Guru Services Committee of doing this is because we realized there's so many devotees, all of you who are wonderfully serving Prabhupada in this very important responsibility of caring for disciples, but there's very little formal, opportunity that we're aware of for you all to kind of exchange. So we're here as your servants trying to facilitate those conversations a little bit. So the breakout groups are really, really important. And then at the end of that, we'll have a little report back from each of the groups, what some of the highlights were. And then then we have a very brief presentation from Chaitanya Avatari about a database that they put together to help all of you keep track of disciples, communicate with them, all of that. That's just about 10 minutes at the end. So that's the plan. Planana Maharaj, would you like to share a few comments, and then we'll carry on after that?
Yeah, thank you all for coming. We appreciate your association. Unfortunately, we can't meet in person. So as Madhu Sevatru would always say, that we express our hugs and to all of you, at least virtually. And we look forward in the future to seeing you. This is an opportunity to associate with some of the most experienced and senior devotees in the movement who have this particular topic. They can share with us their experiences, which can help us. In America, they call it shop talk, where devotees sit around or people sit around, they talk about their experiences, good and bad, so they can learn from each other. So I can't think of a better group of devotees to associate with in this particular subject matter. It's a difficult service, as we all know. And we all have great experiences, or we all have experiences that we can share with each other. Some of them are interesting, some of them are sad, some of them are funny, some of them are of a different rasa, but they're all educational for us in our service so that we can serve Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement with more enthusiasm and more conviction. So again, I thank you for coming, and we look forward to your association, more such seminars. And we invite your feedback afterwards. As we got feedback last time, we really appreciated that to help us improve our service to you and to the society and to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Okay, we'll turn it over to Bhakti Marg Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. It's nice to be in your company. We'll just chant to the Prabhupada Pranati mantras, and then to the Panchatattva and the Hare Krishna mantra, and then we'll finish with Jai Prabhupada. And we'll ask everyone to unmute, and like we did last time. I know it sounds a little muddled and scattered, but we figured that's just the best way to go. It's not going to be perfect, but the purity is there, and that's where the force is. Thank you so much. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimad Bhakti Vedanta iti nami.
Namah Vishnu Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine
Namaste Saraswati Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Ashyavadi Pastyatya Desha Tarine
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much. We're just calling on the help of Radha and Krishna to allow us to have a good meeting today. Thank you for the wonderful choir. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Mark Swami. Somebody who aroused so much ecstasy they can't stop chanting the power of your kirtan, Maharaj. It's wonderful.
I felt like being underneath the water.
So, let's, without further ado, let me introduce the first of our speakers. His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj will be addressing us on this topic, helping disciples to face challenges. He's probably known to all of us, as is everyone here, but it's nice to have at least a brief introduction. So Maharaj first met Prabhupada in 1971 in India and served there for some time until he moved later to West Virginia, New Vrindavan, and was initiated by Srila Prabhupada in 1973. In 1986, he accepted the vows of sannyas, and he returned to India at that time. Became a member of the GBC 10 years later in 1996, and is responsible for a long list of areas, primarily in Italy and in India, including West India and East India and West East India, West Bengal. That's an interesting one. He's got West Bengal, which is in East India. parts of West Bengal. Maharaj is one of the programs we know that he's been very led in a very wonderful way, the midday meals program, which of course in other areas of India as well. But under his direction, 250,000 plates of prasadam are distributed on a daily basis through the project in the areas he oversees. And he's the author of the two highly acclaimed books. I see people distributing these and people being inspired to come and ask more about Prabhupada and ask more about ISKCON. His work with the book, The Journey Home, and also The Journey Within. Prabhupada has, Radhanath Swami has many disciples, primarily in North America, Europe, and India. So that's a very brief introduction. We don't want to take away his time for speaking to us. So Maharaj, thank you very much for being with us. And we'll turn the screen over to you. Hare Krishna.
Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastajatesha Dharine Bansha Kalpatarubhyas Chakripa Sindubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Recording in progress.
Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'm very grateful to be with all of you today. I feel too much unqualified to speak on this subject. There are so many far more qualified personalities who are gathered together today. But I have been ordered to speak, so I will try to obey by sharing some of my thoughts. In one sense, ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, its purpose is to help people to overcome challenges in becoming Krishna conscious. Srila Prabhupada set up our whole society in such a way to help each devotee of all varieties to overcome challenges. And the process itself is the cure, and the process itself is the way to prevent falling victim to these challenges. Srila Prabhupada gave us his books, and he urged us so strongly to read his books, to discuss his books, and to distribute his books. Srila Prabhupada's devotional ecstasies are in his books. His compassion for us is in his books. And I'm just thinking that so much of what's included in Srila Prabhupada's books are stories of great souls who are in a context of great challenges. Kunti, Prahlad. In fact, in those two subjects of Kunti and Prahlad, Srila Prabhupada gave entire lecture series. And there's even, books on his lectures on those topics, which are very much about dealing with challenges. And to be spiritually strong is the way to overcome challenges, and how to inspire people to be spiritually strong. Srila Prabhupada created communities and temples where devotees are protecting one another, inspiring one another, and lifting each other up when they're down. the Mangalarti, the Kirtan, the Japa, the Harikatha, absorbing ourselves in the mission of preaching. These are all formulas which cure us from our challenging situations, and which also prevent us from falling into those challenging situations. So I believe that through our efforts, through our intelligence, through our prayers, to try to help people to have faith in the process that Srila Prabhupada has given us, and to adhere and come back to that process when there's difficulties. Every devotee that comes to this movement is Srila Prabhupada's child. Every devotee in all generations of our founder Acharya's movement are Srila Prabhupada's sons and daughters. And Srila Prabhupada has said that he shed buckets of blood to bring each and every devotee to this movement. And I think as leaders, it's very important to see each devotee in that context. That this is Srila Prabhupada's son, this is Srila Prabhupada's daughter, and Srila Prabhupada care. And Srila Prabhupada shed buckets of blood to bring each of these devotees that are in my care. So what a great responsibility we have. During Srila Prabhupada's time, there was not very many devotees that had direct relationship with Srila Prabhupada. It was mainly through his books, through serving his mission, and through his senior disciples that we were nourished. And, each and every one of us had so many challenges that we had to, that we needed each other. Srila Prabhupada gave that example of the bundle of sticks. If you take any stick out individually, it's easily broken, but when they're tied together, it's very strong. So it's very, very important that leaders take this spirit of Srila Prabhupada to put emphasis on helping to create, to facilitate, and to empower communities. In my own life, and I fail continuously, so I can't really speak anything to any of you. I can just share some thoughts. We created a counselor system or a mentor system, whatever you may call it, because devotees need to feel cared for. And to both prevent devotees from having problems and to give devotees a place of shelter that they know they can freely access when they do have problems. This is very important because Maya is very strong, and the material world in Kali Yuga, there's innumerable challenges and problems that will come to everybody. And devotees need a place to come. They need a place where they can open their hearts and seek shelter. And that shelter really is in senior devotees who help to give them faith and reorient them to the process of Krishna consciousness, to develop a higher taste for hearing and for chanting and for associating with devotees. I believe it's very important that the gurus of our movement need to very much be in sync, in harmony with the local leaders where disciples may be living. And we need to form teams among ourselves to help these devotees. And one beautiful example is right in front of us, His Holiness Niranjan Swami Maharaj and Achyuta Priya Prabhu. Achyuta Priya Prabhu is a local leader, and all of Niranjan Maharaj's followers, they know that what Achyuta Priya Prabhu is speaking is fully supported by Niranjan Maharaj, and that Achyuta and when there's a difficulty, together they strive to resolve the challenges, and together they strive to develop systems, formulas, and a community to empower devotees to overcome challenges. Kaladesha Patra, according to the time and the place and the particular person and the particular challenge, in many cases, in every case, actually, it's unique. And, individual devotees really do need to be inspired, corrected individually. But we need general principles in which those individual efforts to help individuals are facilitated and empowered. And it's really important that as leaders we understand that the local people who are giving their hearts and lives to help, devotees, we need to very much be in harmony. The Shiksha Gurus and the Diksha Gurus really have to be one in spirit to help each devotee. And these are a few thoughts I have. And of course, in my own life, because I know how disqualified I am, I really do depend on God brothers, God sisters, senior leaders, and I really do depend on my prayers because we really need to care. We really need, as a movement, leaders to come together to really care about the devotees. And we see among the great gurus of our movement like Narada Muni and Nityananda Prabhu, who are our original gurus, how much they cared about people. How much Srila Prabhupada, he just cared about us so much that somehow or other, he gave us the encouragement, the faith, and the facility in whatever state of consciousness we were in to make advancement. And following in his footsteps, as a community, this is such a wonderful blessing Srila Prabhupada has given us to try to take care of his children. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Radha Maharaj. I appreciate your remarks. I took some notes, a lot of very important points that you made. I'm sure others also benefited greatly. And we're going to come back in a few minutes and open it up after we hear from Niranjan Maharaj and Achyuta Priya, so there'll be opportunity for devotees to ask you questions and go a little deeper into the points that you raised. So just as a brief introduction for His Holiness Niranjan Maharaj, before he speaks, he joined ISKCON in early 1973. He has responsibilities as a GBC member in various places around the world. We talk these days about contiguous zones, which means kind of grouping zones together. We don't have that system yet. We're working our way there. The Mirage has, just for some, Northeast United States, Ukraine, Belarus, Lithuania, Moldova, and other places. So he's got a lot of responsibilities in different parts of the globe. He started initiating spiritual master in ISKCON in 1988. I asked him earlier because I think we all hear about his interesting and exciting stories in preaching in Russia and in the former Soviet Union. He first began traveling to that part of the world in 1989. He has many disciples, primarily in Russia, Ukraine, North America, Lithuania, Europe, and the UK. Achyuta Priya, who will be joining Maharaj for some remarks, as Radhanath Maharaj gave a nice introduction, how the two of them work together so well. Diksha Guru, Siksha Guru. Achyuta Priya Prabhu joined ISKCON in 1980, and he oversees areas as an official ISKCON zonal supervisor in the Ukraine and in Moldova. And he assists Niranjan Maharaj in those areas. And I think understanding that both Niranjan Maharaj and Achyuta Priya Prabhu oversee Ukraine, and Achyuta Priya, I think, spends a lot of his time in Ukraine. We're all aware of the world situation there. I think we should all offer prayer for the devotees in the Ukraine and pray that whatever unfolds over the next few days or weeks in that part of the world, hopefully the devotees are all protected and Krishna gives them special protection. So let me turn it over to Niranjan Raj and Achyuta Priya Prabhu, and thank you both for being here. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Anuttama Prabhu. Thank you very much for introducing me, and Achyuta Priya also, and for giving me this facility to address the assembled Vaishnavas on this important topic. When I was initially requested by our GBC chairman to speak to this assembly, I felt very much unqualified to speak on a topic about dealing with disciples who are challenged, having difficulties in their spiritual life. Who am I, I thought, to speak to others about such a topic when I have disciples who are facing a lot of challenges. Nonetheless, because it was requested by our GBC chairman, I accepted his request, even though I suggested that somebody else more qualified could do it. So I did feel, though, however, that to give a presentation on such a topic would be incomplete unless I shared this presentation with Achyuta Priya Prabhu, because I feel that he has so much that he can contribute, because as Radhanath Maharaj presented before, that we work closely together, specifically on this topic about helping disciples who are facing challenges in a very proactive way. And I realized the necessity of being very proactive, having been coming or visiting the former Soviet Union for 33 years now, and seeing the numbers of devotees who were joining, seeing how the movement was spreading. And I understood quite quickly, with the help of Radhanath Maharaj, although he's given some credit to myself, but actually credit goes to him because of my visits to Chaupati in the early 1990s. I understood that there was a need to be proactive about how to care, not just for disciples, but to care for devotees. And I'll speak about that a little bit, who are also not my disciples, and how being very open in our way of caring for devotees, to both disciples and those who are others' disciples, creates an atmosphere where devotees feel cared for. And I feel that's a very, very essential element is, yes, devotee care. As I've oftentimes explained, the first principle, if you want to be successful in a devotee care system, then the first principle is you need to care for devotees, which is not, it's not a mystery. And so Achyuta Priya and I do work cooperatively, and I felt I would share my presentation with him for that purpose. And you spoke about, or you had introduced helping devotees or disciples face challenges. One of the important principles that I've based my training of devotees who are coming to Krishna consciousness and aspiring to become more committed to Krishna consciousness. And before I accept them as disciples, I've come to realize that I have to think more about their future than their past. Oftentimes, we always have this idea of what the devotee has done in the past. You know, he's gone through the necessary procedures, he's chanted 16 rounds, followed the 4 regular principles for a certain number of years. He's performed all of these activities and service, and he's undergone tests and training, and that's just a small part of it. I've come to realize for my responsibility in accepted disciples, I've understood that if even more important than their past is their future. And I have to be able to see their future. And in being able to see a good future for my disciples, I've become convinced that these devotees have to be embedded in a very strong devotee social fabric before I can accept responsibility for them. And I have a great responsibility, and I believe, in training them to understand how important it is to be embedded. Because if they are embedded in a strong devotee social fabric with other devotees with whom they have faith in, they trust, they respect, they can open their minds to, then I think, oh, this devotee has a future. Because I've come to realize that just simply to allow them to think that because they've become connected to me and taken initiation to me on behalf of Srila Prabhupada and the Guru Parampara, this is not their strength of their future. The strength of their future is that, as Radhanath Maharaj nicely presented, there has to be a community of devotees that they're embedded in and feel cared for. And therefore, a great thrust of my preaching, I believe that I have to invest in and had to invest in, is how to encourage devotees to have meaningful relationships with local devotees. That, more than anything, is a preliminary introduction that I give to them in their Krishna consciousness. How to have meaningful relationships with local devotees. And I also have to teach them how to invest in having those relationships. Because for many of them, it's a bewilderment how to have a trusting relationship. Well, they expect people to come forward and just care for them. But they have to invest in having a real relationship with somebody. It takes time. It takes trust, building trust, and they have to know what to look for and how to invest in having a meaningful relationship. And I believe that by preaching that way, I'm encouraging devotees before they even take initiation and become quote unquote disciples. I've encouraged them to see others as a source of strength, shelter, protection, and caring. And when they feel that way, I can really give a message to them which I think is most relevant. That becomes our connection. Our connection is based on the holy name, and based on the best way to always be absorbed in the holy name is by thinking themselves to be lower than the straw on the street, devoid of all sense of false prestige, ready to offer all respects to others. In that state of mind, they can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. And in this way, we can teach them about topics which are very relevant and give them faith in ultimately in pure devotional services, which is the message that gurus should really be investing in their disciples. And because I have so much opportunity to be able to do that, because I feel devotees are being cared for, I see that devotees will naturally gravitate and seek from me that which is most essential for their spiritual development, their faith, their stability, is that, yes, pure devotional service is what Srila Prabhupada came to give. And if we have faith in that, then they can overcome any obstacle that they may undergo locally with the help of local devotees that they've embedded themselves in, and to gain association through those local devotees. Now, when I speak this way, I think it's important to understand that I'm not giving a message that's meant for everybody. It's not that one size fits all. I realize there are some gurus who may have a small number of disciples who feel that they have to be very closely connected, helping their disciples, training them, taking care of all of their needs, and helping them to in their many other problems which they confront, which personally I don't even have to deal with. But it's not. I'm not giving a message that one size fits all. So please understand, I've been asked to speak from my own realization about how to care for devotees, and there's much more I could say on the topic, but I wanted to share this presentation with the Achyuta-priya Prabhu because I believe he can speak firsthand because he's on the ground. He's on the ground. He sees what these devotees are going through. He knows what they need. And if there's a success for the devotee care system in Ukraine, it's because he is their spiritual leader. He is their spiritual leader. They trust him. And I believe that's a very, very important aspect for helping to care and think of the devotee's future, is to be proactive, anticipating they will have problems. And when we invest in the local leaders and helping them to help the devotees with their problems, then a lot can come from that. And I have personal experience how it has come from that. I don't speak about Ukraine exclusively, although it does exist there. It exists in other places as well, but I can say strongly that it does exist in Ukraine, and therefore I wanted to ask Achyuta-priya to please speak and share this presentation with me. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you for being here also, Achyuta-priya.
Hare Krishna. It's very humiliating for me to speak in front of such exalted devotees. But anyways, on the request of Niranjan Maharaj, I'll do so. And I'll speak about practical application of what both Radhanath Swami and Niranjan Swami were speaking about. So I'll speak about system of practical support to Diksha Gurus in helping their disciples. We're trying to work on a devotee care system and counselor system. And in Ukraine and Moldova, at least 15 gurus initiating so far. And we see this system and counselors as servants of Diksha gurus, of devotees. We're not doing any management system through counselor system. We're just trying to create a mass of devotees who are spiritually strong and inspired and socially steady. And managers, administrators, they also can be, have to be counselors, but better not to be a manager for a person under your care. If we speak about benefits for Diksha Guru and caring for their disciples, we quite often see that when Diksha Guru micromanaging disciples' life, including getting them married, helping them to find a job, solving their mental problems, calculating their horoscope, suggesting particular project, etc., involving them in some project, then when a disciple will face some problems in life, which inevitable, everybody facing problems, then the disciple quite often turning against his or her spiritual master, Diksha Guru, and blaming Diksha Guru for the problems. So looks like it is much better if Diksha Guru focuses more on spiritual eternal instructions, on Sambandha Jnana, especially if Diksha Guru has many disciples or living in a very distant place. And micromanagement, or we're not speaking actually about management, but suggestion and practical application of this Dibya Jnana, the process of Abhideya, most used for Shiksha Gurus, who are much practically lower level than Diksha Gurus and who are nearer to disciple. And if disciple frustrated with some practical instructions of immediate spiritual authorities, then he or she will still have a shelter on eternal level relationships with Diksha Guru, and he remaining in ISKCON. It's especially relevant to situation of arranged marriages, for example, giving instruction about marriage life, which more or less always based on sex life. Most of our Diksha Gurus are sannyasis, and most of the disciples are grihastas or need to be situated in grihastha ashram. Then our sannyasis will be better protected also as a side effect. It's also very relevant, local health is very much relevant when disciple facing health problems. Help with health should come from local level, from local devotee medical practitioners. Otherwise, we've seen that, unfortunately, that some disciples are turning to their Diksha Guru for money, expecting Diksha Guru to help with health. So general ideas are like that. First of all, we're trying to teach people and motivate devotees to take full responsibility for their lives. And if they need some extra help, that's no problem. We're trying to provide. So we go and we're aiming for creating culture of mutual care, which will help diminish turnover in ISKCON. Of course, devotees have a free choice. They can choose their counselor, but for that, we must have variety of different counselors. And help we're trying to provide are on 4 levels according to GBC Devotee Care Committee, which is spiritual help, means means sadhana, chanting, reading, four principles, etc. Emotional, social, and physical. And so far in Kyiv, we have today 96 groups, and each group includes from 5 to 50 devotees. And they have a group meeting with their counselor or Namahatma leader or minimum at least every fortnight. And then we also gathering all these counselors, and we have session with them every 2 or 3 weeks to be on the same page, to discuss different aspects of devotee care. And in other temples in Ukraine and Moldova, we're also gradually picking up the same ideas. Approximately we have in this zone of Ukraine and Moldova about 360 groups. And we see that devotees going through difficult times when they're changing ashrama from brahmachari to grihastha, or when they're getting divorced, unfortunately, or when some close relative die, or at the time of some emotional stress or severe health issues, when they're suddenly messed up, or even now during this COVID pandemic also, or at the time of war. That's very, very acute situations for devotees. And at this point, they really need attention and care. And if they get in that, if someone who near and dear to them, helping them, then they overcome these difficulties and they get in much more stronger in Krishna consciousness, and they get in more and more attached to the society of devotees. And how it's done practically. Besides these groups, we have some committees like marriage board. We know how much problematic marriage is and arranging marriages, especially if guru is sannyasi or has many disciples. And through marriage board, just in Kyiv, for over 2 decades, 4 senior married couples with positive experience in marriage, steady material and spiritually. We already helped devotees, and we created more than 80 married couples. And divorce rate so far, we have a little bit more than 3%, no more. And it also includes counseling before marriage and after marriage, because with marriage, everything just starts. And of course, confidentiality is very important principles in this field. Also, we have Bhaktivedanta Fund for devotees who in physical need, who sick, who need to be operated. There are a lot of devotee medical practitioners to offer some counsel, treat, or help finding proper doctor to help devotees. Evaluate what is needed actually. Another committee we have, funeral services.
Just because of the time limitations we have, I'm going to interrupt you there. I think the main flow, what you present, is very clear and very helpful. But I want to make sure that the devotees who are participating have a chance to ask you and Niranjan Maharaj and Ranath Maharaj some questions regarding that. So if it's okay, we're just going to switch into our question time now.
Okay.
Thank you. It was very helpful. Very helpful. And I'll just highlight, I think Ranath Maharaj, he really emphasized the need for devotees to be spiritually strong to facilitate whatever challenges they have. He talked about Prabhupada's books and community. Very important, very, very important to do that. And the need for gurus to generally, as he said, generally care for the disciples. Niranjan Maharaj emphasized the same points. I really like this. I captured that it's more important to think about their future than their past. I highlighted that. I'm going to try to remember that in everything that I do. And the importance of immersing devotees, being embedded, the term used in terms of strong devotional communities, feeling protected, and how you encourage devotees to have relationships with those others around them, they can take shelter of them. They can build trust, and how that takes time is something that needs to be worked on. And then at Chutupriya, really appreciate your comments about the practical support, the systems that you develop in those areas that, you know, you've got 15 gurus, so they're coming, they're going, and have different amounts of time to spend, but that you're really emphasizing making sure that there's counselor systems there to strengthen devotees, to help them through the different phases of spiritual life, emotional, social, physical. Very, very helpful. So let's go ahead and ask devotees electronically. On your screen at the bottom in black, it says reactions. And if you'd be so kind as to click on that, if you have, like, raise your hand, and then that helps us kind of direct the questions and hear everybody in an organized way. So please share your questions at this point. Again, the breakout rooms are going to come next. So, but we've got about 30 minutes for questions, and I'll go ahead and call on you. Adikarta Prabhu, I see your hand up first, please. And you can ask a general question, or you may want to say, you know, direct your question towards one of the three presenters as you feel best. I think you're muted.
You have to unmute. Unmute.
Yeah, Adikarta, you're muted, Prabhu.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I didn't really mean to say anything, to be honest, but I will ask a quick question. But Hare Krishna, everybody. Nice to see you. So how many counselors should each devotee have?
That's a question for Chutupriya.
I think so. Chutupriya is asking how many counselors devotees should have, and I think the other part of that question is how many devotees can a counselor care for? I think two sides. And you're muted now.
You're muted. You're muted, Chutupriya. You're muted.
Yes. No. Can you hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you. We emphasize that better if devotee belong to some group, at least one group, and if he go into different groups and have a few counselors, that's not problem, provided there are nice relationships between counselors. Then no jealousy, no problem. And one counselor, or let's say one couple, married couple, we say that the number of devotees under their care should not exceed 50 people. Otherwise, quality of care diminishes.
So you have a different counselor.
To clarify, was that 1-5 or 5-0? Sorry, I want just to make sure we get that right. 1-5 or 5-0?
5-0.
5-0. Whoa. Okay, thank you. Adikarta, you had a follow-up to that, and then we'll go to blood numbers.
I was going to say, so the different counselors would be one for marriage, one for service, one for mental health or something? No.
But if a counselor feeling not qualified in some particular area, if a relationship nice between counselors, they can always turn devotee to somebody else.
Thank you.
Prahlad Maharaj. And others, please feel free to raise your electronic hand, so we'll have you in queue.
Thank you for your nice presentations. It's been very helpful and enlightening. This is a general question, but maybe perhaps specifically for a Chutupriya Prabhu. You outlined about the types of devotee care which are essential, for instance, marriage. I don't think any one of us on this call don't have ourselves have some challenges, what to speak of our disciples, when it comes to marriage or health or emotional care, etc., etc. The first question I have, do you have anything written, any of our distinguished presenters that would outline the systems you've set up in your particular areas that would help us in our areas to go forward in this devotee care? specifically about marriage or health or other issues like that? That's my first question. Any kind of written material or seminars or anything else in that regard that might be helpful in some way in our areas that we're dealing with. Chutapriya, do you have anything in the Ukraine that's written down or seminars that have been given that might be helpful for us in other areas of the world?
We have Niranjan Maharaja's book on devotee care, which he did, and I think in few publications. We had seminars of His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj also. And on that basis, we also have this book with preface of Niranjan Maharaj on devotee care and all different aspects, which is called Bhakata Seva.
Are there, for instance, how marriage is arranged? Is that included in this information? And
Yes.
what are the criteria by which it's done? And the follow-up to the marriages, what kind of counseling is given? And I guess another question would be, do you wait for the devotees to approach you about these issues, or sometimes you take it for granted, for instance, that they probably have some of these issues, and that you inquire from them out front about what they're feeling about these things?
Maybe Maharajas will speak on that. I don't think I need to grab the floor all the time.
Ranjan Raj, you want to respond to that? And then we'll go on to Vibhav Prabhu's questions.
I'm sorry, but my sound broke up just a little bit and I didn't hear the whole question. I'm in India. Sometimes that happens.
He was asking, in part, as I understood it, looking at the counselor groups, are those people trained to kind of, proactively seek out disciples and ask for their problems, or are they kind of reactive, or how exactly are they trained and how are they, empowered?
Well, training is there to be proactive and to reach out and to anticipate a problem before it actually surfaces. There is some training in that regard, but it's not always effective, and the person is not always astute enough to anticipate the problem before it actually happens. But there is an effort to train. Some people can do it, and some people can't, and therefore they have to be more reactive because they weren't able to do it in time, and therefore I would say both sides of the spectrum. But training is there for sure.
Okay, thank you. I'm thinking maybe one thing the Guru Services Committee can do to assist all of you is maybe later we can take a poll and see who's working with counselor systems and what, as Prahlad Namraj was asking, what kind of training materials are there? Because probably there's a lot of really good information, but I don't know if everybody's sharing that amongst yourselves. So maybe we can help with that later, just as kind of information flow. Vibhav Prabhu.
Yes, it's a question or comment to Chutapriya Prabhu, just how really, and I'm underscoring Prahladananda Maharaj's first comment. How do we get this information from your presentation today? How we actually get it? Could you send us right now in the chat your email address? If we can have on the chat your email address and we can contact you to know about all these groups that you have organized, support groups, counselor groups. So that's basically what it is. I really want to have a hold on this information.
Is that material in English, Chutapriya? I had Bhakata Seva translated at one time. I have English version of it, but.
Thank you. Well, I'm also wondering if it's too much to ask for Chutapriya if you had written something for this presentation, because you already spoke of, even what you spoke today, it's already a lot of information regarding those groups. So if you can send us something, anyway, that's what I'm hoping to ask from you through your email.
I already sent my email to the chat.
Yes, I saw it. Sorry.
Please.
So I'll contact you. Thank you very much.
Okay, other questions or comments? We've got about another 12, 13 minutes before we take our break. Please feel free to jump in, raise your hands, comments, questions, and
In relation to His Holiness Prahladananda Maharaj, when the Devotee Care Committee first began to help the GBC, our Radha Gopinath Temple, we presented to the Devotee Care to share with the devotees the whole history and process of the counselor system, which goes into some detail of all these different subgroups, marriage and health and emotional and crisis. So, that document is there if anyone would be interested. The Devotee Care Committee has that.
thank you, Maharaj. So do you know, Radha Maharaj, as the Devotee Care or the Congregational Ministry, whatever, have they compiled all of the information from the various counselor systems into one place? Do you know, or is there kind of like a reservoir of all that information we can send everyone to?
Revati Raman Prabhu probably does. I know we submitted a whole presentation of how and why we're making these efforts toward devotee care. And I believe that Revati Raman Prabhu and the Devotee Care Committee has, several different formats that are being created and practiced in different places.
Okay, thank you. More questions, please. Prahladananda Maharaj has more question or comment.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions, but what if you had to give us some advice at Yudapriya, what has made your marriage counseling successful in the Ukraine? So there's such a small percentage of divorces. Can you give us some hints about how the marriages are arranged and how they come out successful in general in your particular area?
It's a long story, Maharaj. It will take a lot of time because it's we have developed quite a sophisticated system which works now and which is in place. But in general, you need, first of all, just steady grihastas, and they will become core, foundation of your system. You need few role models, first of all.
You mentioned that you had 4 of them and 80 successful marriages. Do they get some kind of fatigue sometimes trying to deal with the potential problems that come up in marriages?
It depends, There are different people. For example, my wife, she can survive without prasadam even, but she loves this stuff. It's just some people has a nature for that. That's.
So have you delineated, or could you delineate some of the characteristics of what is successful, what a qualified grihasta couple would be, who would be adequate for such a service, and probably long-lasting in such a service? Because it's so essential. You have, as you mentioned, that you have such qualified couples to deal with it.
They must be emotionally steady, no scandals in family, and they must be steady, no divorce, and that's it. Steady economically also, spiritually with their sadhana.
Okay, thank you.
Bhaktivedanta Maharaj.
It may not be full-fledged question, but just a little detail which I wanted to know. Achyutapriya Prabhu said that there are 80 couples which were formed through this marriage counseling system, and 3% is divorced. 3% from 80 is 2.5 couples divorced. So is it correct? Am I correct? How many?
We have three divorces, but these 3 divorces from the marriages which we arranged.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, because there are some people who find in them their spouse. We also, we're helping them anyways, but counseling, no problems, but we're not arranging that, and we're not really so much responsible for the outcome.
3 divorces among 80 couples which have...
Yes, true.
Niranjan Maharaj.
I just wanted to add, since it seems to be a topic of interest, is that when Achyuta Priya speaks about arranged, I think it's important for everybody to know that it's because these people who are involved in the lives of the devotees who are getting married, they know them well. They know all parties well. They will not get involved in anybody's attempt to be married unless they're open and have open relationships. And because of the open relationships and because they know both parties, therefore they can be effective in helping them to grow in their budding relationships in householder life. So it's not like they just, they're doing things astrologically and putting somebody together and, that's it, that's the formula, your charts match. It's much deeper than that, And I just felt I believe the criteria of the success is that because there are open, meaningful relationships with local devotees, and therefore they can help their dependents when they're having problems with each other, especially in the initial stages of their budding householder life. And a lot of work and blood, I know, is shed in the effort to help them. And I'm just grateful that I don't have to be at all involved in it.
Thank you, Maharaj, for your essential remarks.
Maharaj, just if I can ask a follow-up clarifying question on that. I know we went through a period of time in ISKCON where we didn't have such a good rate. And, arranging marriages is maybe more loaded term in certain parts of the world than others. Can I assume, like I know as a member of the Gross Division team, they have lots of systems for premarital counseling, helping couples, first and foremost, they're kind of happy if they decide to not get married because that means they wouldn't have made it long term. So the ones that kind of make it through the counseling, they got a better chance. But ultimately, they very much stress that there's no social pressure because some counselor or some Siksha guru says you'd be a good match. It's totally up to the individual couple to make that final decision. Your mother may say this, your father may say that, your Diksha group, but ultimately the couples have to make that kind of a commitment. Is that a Western bias, or am I understanding that's a Vaishnava principle that you're teaching there? Or am I misunderstanding what you're teaching there?
Is that a question to me?
Yeah, please.
To me, I can only say this. I mean, in this regard, if anybody ever approaches me about somebody they have a particular interest in or a thought about getting married, my response is always that you do your homework. Don't ask for blessings. You do your homework, and they should know what their homework is. And that needs to be clearly defined, what kind of homework they need to do to understand compatibility and to understand others who can help them with their compatibility. I will never foolishly bless somebody to get married with somebody unless they've done their homework. So I don't give them the illusion to thinking that my blessing will make the marriage work. It's foolish. It's a foolish notion. So therefore, Achyutapriya can maybe add to that, but that's how I deal with it. And nobody ever comes to me anymore unless they've done their homework. And they tell me exactly what they did. This is what they've done. This is the time they spent. Everything like that. We know we're compatible. We've done everything appropriately. We've not in any way. And I say, can we go ahead? And they ask, can we go ahead? And can I accept so-and-so as you have my blessings?
Don't be fooled. Do your homework. Nice little mantra there. Thank you, Maharaj. A very clear answer. Medhavi Prabhu has his hand raised.
Hare Krishna.
You're muted, Prabhu.
Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Can you hear?
I can hear you. Yes.
Right. We've had representatives from His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj's give devotee care courses twice in South Africa, and somehow or other it just really hasn't become embedded. The first question is how to embed, and this maybe the second is similar, that it seems in ISKCON we always have the outreach versus the inreach. So are they compatible? Are they not compatible? Or is that a misunderstanding? Hare Krishna.
Are you directing your question to Radha Maharaj?
If Mars is willing to accept the question, fine.
Thank you. I think Ukraine and Achyutapriya Prabhu and Niranjan Maharaj, they exemplify very much how the counselor Namhata mentor system could actually be successful. Unless the local leaders make it a priority, I've never seen it work. The information could be there, the systems could be there, the inspirations could be there, but unless the local leaders make it a serious priority, this type of devotee care programs, it just doesn't get off the ground. It remains theoretical. And I've seen wherever the local leaders make it a serious, sustainable priority in their preaching, in their facilitations, in their empowerment, then it always works, because it's just natural Krishna consciousness. That senior devotees feel a responsibility to help, to guide, and to empower their juniors. That's very much what it means to be servant of the servant when you're a leader. Something like marriage, when there are exemplary grihastas, there's nobody better that can guide future grihastas or new grihastas than people. Sannyasis don't know how to do it. Brahmacharis don't know how to do it. But devotees who have been married, and have gone through all the challenges and who've gone through all the problems, and there's really nothing new. All the challenges that come to devotees are just like the same content in different bottles. And they've remained exemplary in their Krishna consciousness. They've remained exemplary in their relationships. They know how to give guidance. They know how to give training, how to empower these people. And it's really just very important that local leaders put in the forefront as a top priority of their whole mission and service devotee care. Otherwise, it doesn't really work. And as far as the compatibility of outreach and inreach, I really believe that, from the story of Lord Chaitanya, he began the Sankirtan movement at Srivasangam, where it was very much inreach, where the devotees themselves were immersed in kirtan. And then after over a year of that, then he actually took Sankirtan into the streets. And I think that unless we really have strong devotee care and strong internal communities, then our outreach is somewhat superficial. Because when we're preaching, when we're doing outreach, we want to bring them into our community. We want to bring them into our Sangam. And what are we bringing them into? If we really have a vision for outreach, it needs to begin with the foundational, that we're bringing them into a community, a family of caring devotees who have a taste for practicing Krishna consciousness. So I believe outreach and inreach are inseparable.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. We are going to pause now and take a 10-minute break. Before we do, want to thank Radhanath Maharaj and Niranjan Maharaj and Achyuta Priya Prabhus for making your presentations to us, sharing your insights, particularly your emphasis on devotee care. I think practically, maybe the Guru Services Committee, we're going to need to look at this later, because it seems there may be some different focus in that. I think some of the devotees here, I'm getting some chats, our guru, serving as gurus, don't have a lot of disciples, physical number of disciples, may have a little different experience of devotee care and some cultural variety in terms of how different devotees have that service. So some of you may be very focused on how the heck do I develop this system, because I've got people all over the world, dozens or hundreds or thousands, some of us. Others may be a little different situation. So it's interesting to see how, as our movement grows, there's going to be different varieties of expression of guru-disciple relationships. But I think the underlying principle that came through loud and clear is we need to really prioritize creating caring communities and creating trusting and caring relationships so disciples have that shelter there. And also that it seemed clear we need to be able to share the information, the resources, the learning that you've all developed over so many years. So we're going to take exactly a 10-minute break. Then we come back. We're going to have about 25 minutes to break our groups. So when you come back, there'll be a little thing on the screen saying, please click here and come back into the groups. I know we all have a busy schedules and a lot of other things to do, but I think in addition to hearing from these exalted Vaishnavas we've been listening to, it's extremely important that others get to also hear from you. So please, everyone, we pray and hope that you'll come back after a 10-minute break. We'll get a chance to exchange a little bit more in smaller group settings. Okay, thank you very much. Have a great